Hey, Blastroid here. Back again with not another minigame. Every time I do a minigame, I get the same question over and over. How did you do it? So I usually provide a kind of behind the scenes tour, but maybe that's not enough. So I went ahead and designed something that might be helpful. I've created a logic mall. A lot of my logic I've done in the past, I've kind of put into stores here. You can go and look at how it got created, even example of it working, and some blueprints you could save to your own system. But mainly, I wanted you to kind of be inspired by it. So let me kind of read this little disclaimer here. Many blueprints can be found here, but the true goal is to share and inspire your own creations. Feel free to alter any of the designs here. Logic is dependent on your scenario and needs and will greatly vary from projects. I'm not sure anything here could be used in a factory build though. These have mainly been created in order to create fun mini games. So that's kind of what we're going to go through here. Now I did it in a mall theme because I've tried to do this many times, but until we got the blueprint machine, I'd never really feel comfortable about releasing this type of file. But we have 11 different logic stores we're going to go into and shop around and see how they work. Now, my parents growing up, we had malls and they'd always park really far back. They said it's good exercise and we don't want to ding our cars. So that's kind of where this kind of got inspired from. One thing also to mention, beware of Carl. Carl is our shuttle bus driver here and he's kind of on the bottle all the time, so he might end up killing you. So be very careful of Carl. Now you don't have to walk all the way. I went ahead and provided more of a kind of a tram service here. A little tunnel we can take that should take us right into the mall itself. So let's go. Alright, here we are. All our different stores are laid out and we can go to them. In this video you will see kind of some jump cuts because I'm just going to go in there, show you how they work. I'm not going to go to a lot of explanation of how they work because I put all that on the walls. I might create separate videos if they're requested. Make sure you comment below if you do want some more details or questions or things like that. In the video description, you will see the download for this save file, and hopefully you enjoy it. So let's go ahead and go right into our first one, the coal generator with extra coal. Alright, here we are in the coal generator with extra coal room. Now every one of these rooms is going to have a wall like this. It kind of gives you some details of it. You'll also notice a arrow that points down there to the blueprint machine where you can go up to it and save your blueprint. This one isn't really a logic piece, it's more of a power room. So you can provide it coal and it can power on something for a few seconds. Or you can say, okay, let's just power a switch on it and it will dump out a bunch of coal and power something for hours on end. So example, I put a light onto it and we're going to go into this bin and show you how it works. I have one piece of coal. I'm just going to put that one piece of coal into the input. And you'll see it's going to light up that green light just for a few seconds. Now, if I wanted to light up that light for hours, I could actually connect these two right here, and next time I provide coal, it will actually dump out the coal that's inside, and that would last for hours. And you could just provide power as another mechanism. I provided power, it's dumping out the coal inside right now, and that light will stay on for hours on end. The reason I started with the coal generator with extra coal board is because we use this board in a lot of the examples moving forward here. Alright, let's go ahead and jump into the next one. Alright, this one is our OR logic room. Not O-R-E, but O-R, meaning you could do anything to represent the same true statement. So I've created a for OR chamber here. Now an OR is actually very easy logic to understand. If I pull in any one of these switches, it's going to pull the coal through and it's going to go over here to our generator room that we saw earlier. Now the reason I did it in a blueprint here is I have all four of these power inputs separated into their own grid. A problem with an OR statement if you do it naturally on the grid is once you power it on, all the other OR statements become activated too, and that actually could cause problems. You had one light and it might activate a different light if these things are all plugged into the same power grid. So by separating the power grid, I was able to create an OR statement a little safer. So right now let's just choose any. Let's choose number 3 here. Number 3 is going to be triggered. It's going to release our OR. It's going to go into our building. That's going to provide the power, and you should see this light turn on in 3, 2, 1. There we go. And that's basically it. I could have done any one of these. It doesn't matter if I turn another one on. Nothing else is going to happen, and especially nothing's going to happen because the grids are all separated. I'm not providing power to all 4 of these. Only 2 of these has been powered on right now. But our coal has already flowed, and we've already started this sequence. It's a one-time sequence, and that was it. All right, moving on to the next. All right, this one's the AND room. The other was the OR room. This is the AND room, meaning all statements have to be true in order to do it. It also, you can think of it as a counter. 3 ANDs would represent a count of 4. 2 ANDs would represent a count of 3. And 1 AND would represent a count of 2. So I've created all 4 of those rooms. You'll see on the wall here, I mentioned a 4, a 3, and a 2. And if we go back here to our blueprints, you'll see I've created a 4 blueprint, a 3 blueprint, and a 2 blueprint. And I've also made it where you can take the output, combine it with an input of another room, and you can combine these. So let's say you needed a 7 AND statement. Well, you can take a 4 and a 3, and that would get you your 7 AND statement. There are some instructions on exactly how to do that because you do have to modify it just a little bit, but it's easy to do. All right, let's go ahead and actually see this in action. Now, it does not matter the sequence you can pull these ANDs in. There are basically 4 truck stations all connected together to provide the item flow, but all 4 of them have to be active in order for the item to finally flow out this output, and you guessed it, back into our coal generator with extra coal logic board that we saw at the first. Let's just go ahead and pull these. I'm going to let's do number 2 here. We'll go over to 4. We'll go over here to 1. Nothing's happened yet, right? So the last one is number 3. And now we should see the coal flow. There it is. I only did 1 piece right now. That's all you have. And there you go. Now, if I wanted that light to turn on again, remember we talked about it. I could have connected these 2. And that coal would have lasted for hours. It's already gone through its triggering, but it won't work this time. But the scenario based on these rooms are vast. They usually do more than one thing if you read the rules into it. All right, let's go ahead and moving on to the next store. All right, now this one is, I'm not going to say it's my least favorite, but it probably is my least favorite room. I call it the true-false room. And I went ahead and designed this blueprint to be very universal. It's mainly working with power objects or power items. What I mean by that, I've listed them on the board here. We got biofuel, we got rods, we got turbo fuel, we got coal, compacted coal. But I went ahead and listed all the fuels in case you wanted to work with this room in multiple ways. I mentioned earlier that a lot of these are scenario based, and I probably used this one only a couple of times. I call it true and false, but it's not really that. Let me kind of explain what's going on here. So right now, if I pull this lever and I don't do anything, I'm only going to do it for a couple of seconds here. You're going to see it's going to release the coal. Let me go ahead and speed that up. Now it's only released a little bit and we're good to go. Now this is considered to me a true statement. Nothing's been altered. We're powering on the light. We're providing coal. And we want to now turn this to a false statement. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab this nut, and as long as you've provided anything that's not on our, I call it a power item board, it will then break the system and turn it into a false. Now that light is going to go on because I actually had a lot of coal in there. I could have limited the coal and done it that way. I should have done that, but for this test, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to put in a nut here, and now I basically broke the system. Now when I put coal or flip the switch, it's going to not produce the coal. It's going to become a false statement. So there again, I turn it on and no coal will ever come out of here because I basically gunked the works. So it started as a true and I made it a false. For example, you have an RPG you want to design in Satisfactory. I would definitely like to see that. Let's say they insert a sword into a bin as part of the story. Well, now you've turned off a path, basically, is what you've done. You've changed the story flow where if they hit the switch before, it would have done something, but now that you've inserted a sword somewhere, part of the story, somebody goes back and says, oh, I'm going to hit that switch, and I'm going to cheat at the game. Well, you broke the system. They can't cheat at the game anymore. You've turned something off pretty much. You've trued to false, I guess. All right, like I said, it's a very scenario based. Let me know if you do find a use for it. I probably used it only a couple times, but I went ahead and included it here because I did make it universal. And when I say universal, not only can you feed it a solid, but you could also feed it a solid liquid, like a packaged liquid. And you'll see right here, instead of a belt output, you can use a pipe output. So if you wanted to actually use a recipe in your logic, you could also use that room. So it's very universal on what you can feed it and not feed it and things like that. But as long as it's not on that power panel, as I say, it will actually break the system if it's not in there. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. All right, we call this one the belt path change. I recently released a mini game called Mastermind, and about 95% of the logic use this logic path to actually do it. So we went ahead and included it here, and this is one of my favorite type of logic rooms. So right now, you're going to see I have two of our coal generators right back there, and then I've got our new belt path change logic board. And basically each coal generator is connected to its own light. And you'll see on this I have path 1 and I have path 2. But I only have one input. So I'm going to take our pieces of coal out of this bin. And I'm going to go ahead and first just insert a piece of coal. And you're going to see that piece of coal comes out path number 1, goes into our first coal generator, and that lights up. Now the only thing I'm going to do different is I'm going to now turn on the power to this logic room. Do exactly what I did earlier. I'm going to insert that one piece of coal, but this time you'll see it is actually exported out path number 2, and then path number 2 light should turn on. There it is. So by providing power, we can now logically change the path of belt items. Now, if you saw the master behind the scenes, you see exactly how I did that. There again, look at the walls. You'll see some details there. Look at all the instructions there. Go into the building and look at it. And you'll see I've created what is called an overflow system on the belt. Once I overflow it, the next item going through that path will actually skip the first path and move its way to the second path. Very simple logic, but you can see how useful this can be by changing the outcome of a path by doing an action. All right, moving on. All right, another important logic room is called the one coal dispenser. Let's give you a scenario. You have a game board where you need 20 different levels to produce a piece of coal every time a player pulls a switch. Now, you can easily put 20 switches in that room, and that will work just fine. But let's degunk the work, and let's just put one switch to those 20 pulls. Well, by creating one coal piece per pull, you can do that. Now later on we're going to see something called the sequencer, so remember that. It's going to come very important when we talk about this room again. But let me go ahead and demonstrate how this works. We're basically just going to turn it on and off very, very quickly. And here in just a couple of seconds you said only one piece of coal should come out. And there it is. We've got our one piece of coal. Let's go ahead and demonstrate that one more time. I'll go on and off. And in about 5 seconds we should see the piece of coal come out. And there we go. So you can see a player can go up to one power switch and activate something, and then reactivate something, and then reactivate something. Remember, we're about to talk about a sequencer, and I can have it reactivate a lot of different things every single pull that you use this machine. So that is our one coal dispenser. All right, moving on to the next. All right, this one might sound familiar. We just did a one coal dispenser. Well, isn't a one item dispenser exactly the same thing, it's just not coal? Actually not. That one coal dispenser uses a differential recipe that produces coal from biomass. This one is actually only primed with 4 different items. They're again very scenario based. Let me know if you find a use for it. But let's say you're doing a PvP arena. This is where I could see it happening. And you want this machine to deliver one gun at a time. You don't want all the guns just to pile out of here. You have 4 guns primed, ready to go. So if I pull this switch on and off, you'll see one gun gets delivered. Now I do need to wait about 15 seconds. I've actually slowed down the belts because I don't want this next gun coming out immediately on the next pull. I want to wait a few seconds and then produce another gun. So I've kind of primed it to about 15 seconds. I think you can even slow the belts down to even 1 using Mark 1 if you want a minute delay or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it on and off again. And you'll see we get the second item once again. Now if I do it too quickly, it may not work, depending on the side of my belts. And you can see again, it did not work. We did not give it enough time to delay itself. But if I try it one more time here, we should get a third item, and there we go. And you just change the items on the belt. You can store up to 4 of them, because I've got 4 truck stations that would fit in my blueprint. I really can't cram any more in. If you wanted something bigger, go into this thing, learn how I did it, read all the boards on the walls and on the panels, and learn how I did it, and you can create a bigger system outside of a blueprint. Blueprints are fairly limited of what you can do, so at least I've mocked it up where you can dissect it and maybe get inspired to do something even grander from this. Let's go ahead and move on to the next blueprint. Alright, a couple of stores ago we ran into the 1 coal dispenser, and I mentioned a path sequencer is coming up, where that board would produce 1 piece of coal every time you pulled it. And I mentioned, let's say you had 20 levels, and every time you pull that switch, I want to produce a piece of coal that goes to level 1, then goes to level 2, then goes to level 3, all the way up to 20. Well, I went ahead and designed a sequencer all the way up to 27 before it starts repeating. So if you wanted anything more than 27, you can actually use this board again and again until you get it to the number you need. So it's a very repeating, but we have 27 divisible by 3. You probably understand why, because we used a ton of splitters in here. Not really logic, this is how the game works, but by doing this, I've saved you a lot of time by mapping out the sequence that it's going to go. The first item will go to number 1, the second item 2, and all the way up to 27. Let me just go ahead and show you how this works. You'll see over here I have our friend, the 1 coal dispenser, hooked into the input of this, and that is the reason I mentioned it earlier, because it's a great combo. And a lot of these logic boards can be plugged in together to kind of produce that. So off and on, we should see 1 piece of coal come out. There it is. This time it should go to the first one. You could save your game, reinstall it, doesn't really matter. As long as you haven't triggered this sequence yet, it should always start at 1. Pull it again. On and off. Wait for our coal. There we go. This time we're looking for number 2. This is the belt I would plug into my game. And there's our piece of coal number 2, all the way to 27. Now there again, I'm limited by the blueprint size, but because it repeats, you can use that to your advantage. It's not just a 27. If you have 28, all you got to do is use that 1 segment again on your 28th round. Also you can do is just map out a bigger one. I've gone up to 81, not inside of a blueprint, but all the way up to 81 before on one of these sequencers. So a really cool piece of logic, but it's just splitters. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, this is another one of my favorites, only because you really can't do it in Satisfactory, but we did it anyway. We created a randomizer. Now, why did I say you couldn't do it and still did it? There's a little gotcha. What is random inside Satisfactory that I could use to create a logic room to create a random situation? There is none. The player itself is your randomizer. For example, how long have I been going on since I've come into this room? Quite a few minutes. I've gone through a lot of puzzles and stuff, but every time somebody loads up a map, especially a mini game like might be multiplayer, you have to maybe wait for a second player to load. Then you've got to walk somewhere. You might be chit-chatting. The phone might ring. You take a phone call. You go to the restroom. Any number of events can happen. All I really care about, did something happen in the last 2 seconds that didn't happen the last time you loaded the save in the last 2 seconds? Let me go in here before I even pull this to show you what is going on and what I'm talking about. I have in here, I call it a belt loop. And you'll see 1 piece of coal is going through here. This is a 50-50 machine. I can only really do that inside this blueprint. I've created up to a 50 randomizer machine before, not in a blueprint, of course, but I'm just showing the example here of a flip of a coin. This is really good for determining which player goes first, heads or tails. So you can kind of keep it that way. Now this belt is going through a loop because these 2 truck stations have been overflowed. The item, the coal cannot go in here because of that overflow. But when I power these 2 truck stations on, I start my flip of the coin. I don't know which side of the the path here that coal is on. Is it on truck station 1 side, heads, or is it truck station 2 side, tails? I really don't know. Remember all that random we talked about of loading the map, running around, answering the phone, scratching your butt? Doesn't matter what, you've added a little bit of time that you probably aren't going to add the next time you load this level. Every scenario you do different. If you leave a coffee shop a minute later, you might have saved yourself from a traffic accident. It's the freaking Jurassic Park talking about the butterfly effect and the piece of water on the arm. Who knows? We could go really deep into this subject, but the human is the random here, not the logic itself. So let me show you this actually working in progress. And that's the really cool thing about games and logic. You don't have to rely on the game itself to provide some of the logic. It's thinking outside the box and using what you're given. Can you still produce the answer you're looking for? In this term, we're looking for in a random event. So I'm going to go ahead and just flip the coin, and let's see which side it comes out on. Left is heads, right is tails. All right, looks like we've got heads. So that just means when I pulled that switch, the coal was closest to the head input truck station. If it just happened to be that 33 milliseconds later, it would ended up on the tail side. But the random event is really, how long did it take you to get to the switch? Think about it like that. So I hope you enjoyed that one. There again, this is a good flip of a coin, but if you really want to build this for more logic, I would build it outside of a blueprint machine. You can go really crazy with number of truck stations and pathing and all that. One thing I would recommend though is always do a circle loop, or at least a loop where every input is equal distance. You don't want the chance of rolling this number to be 37% and the other one to be, a higher number different. So by keeping a circular and all your inputs exactly the same length, you're giving every flip of that coin the same chance. Here we have a 50-50. It's the loop is very even on that. I did a figure 8 here because of the way I had to put the truck stations in the blueprint. Outside of it, I could have done a much tighter loop and even faster loop outside of a blueprint machine. Very limiting on what you can do in truck station blueprints. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. All right, now this logic might kill you. It's called die. Now, we're just talking about a singular dice. It could actually be any number of dice. I went ahead and programmed to be a 6-sided dice here, but if you wanted a 20-sided dice, all you got to do is fill this thing with 20 different items and then represent your signs of those 20 different items and values. You'll see here right now it is saying a oil barrel, that is equal to a 5. But if I were to flip the switch, you'll see it's actually rolling the dice right now. So whenever I turn the switch off, we just rolled the same 5. Great example there, Blastroid. Let's try again. All right, we just rolled a 2. There's another 2. I'm good on these doubles, aren't I? Another 2, triple. I'm about to get Yahtzee. Okay, another 5. Apparently, you can only roll 2s and 5s. All right, here we go. Let's see. There's a 4. All right. I thought it was about to make a liar. There's a 3. There's another 2. I can't roll a 1 to save my life, though. No snake eyes for me. There's the 1. There's the 1. So you can see it actually works really cool. And because it goes so fast with this Mark V belt, if you can cheat that fast, you've got some special powers. Now, I went ahead and gave you a load item because in order to load the belts, the blueprint doesn't have the items. I went ahead and put some signs that kind of represent 6 for you, but you still have to load them manually because you need to load them 1 through 6. You shouldn't do 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3. You want them in perfect order so the chances of rolling are all equal. Now, you need to load them more than once. So I have in here probably loaded about 9 times of these 6. I've actually put a note up here. If you get up to 54 items, that's pretty good. You don't really want to see a gap here. You want to see these things spinning at all times. So if you had a 20-sided dice, you might load it up 3 times if it fits. Maybe just 2 times if it didn't fit it 3 times. But you're just trying to prevent this from showing some kind of gap is really what you're doing. Now you're probably asking, how the hell did you get that item to show through the wall like that? That's kind of weird. Now every single thing in this map is vanilla except for this guy. I don't make you install any mods. but we did modify something. We call it vanilla with sprinkles in my world. I've used the Satisfactory calculator to do one small little cheat here, but it's a very simple cheat. Let me go over here and explain it. I have all my items flowing, but you'll notice here something is missing. We have a little chunk of the belt is missing. I used the Satisfactory calculator to change the XYZ value of this one belt. To the game, it doesn't think it's not connected. It thinks it's connected here and it's connected here. But if we go outside, oh, there you go. You'll see that missing chunk right there. And I just made sure I put the one of the the Y or the X in a certain location so where the item just barely sticks out at the end here, and it looks really, really cool. Probably my favorite dice ever done, even though it is a little bit of sprinkles with vanilla sprinkles. I still think it's my favorite. I've done a couple others I'm not as pleased with, but they do work in vanilla. But this one here, I will cheat all day long to produce this dice. If you need more than one of these, put another machine here. You may not get these spaced correctly, but you can always go into Satisfactory calculator and always change the XYZs of these belts anywhere you need it. The cool thing also, you could have this logic panel all the way across the map too, and as long as you're teleporting the belt to your game board, man, that's a lot less of memory usage right there in that chunk you're in. So pretty cool little dice. Hope you enjoy it. I want to see this used. I can see this used in a lot of mini games, a whole lot of. I actually created Satisfactory in this game, the spin-off of Monopoly, and I needed 2 dice, and I used a system not exactly like this, but very similar. All right, let's move on to the next. All right, save the biggest for last. This is the count up to 50 with nuclear technology. And you can see there's a whole paragraph on that wall. I'm not going to read it to you, but let me give you the synopsis of what's going on. Why in the world do I say count up to 50 with nuclear technology? This one actually is 2 different blueprints. We have a counter blueprint machine. Actually, I have 2 of these because we're about to count the number 2, but you can go all the way up to 50. And then I have something called the rod builder. You guessed it, it's the nuclear rod builder. So if we go in this machine, you're going to see there is a manufacturer in here. This manufacturer is building 1 uranium fuel rod. I've already gave it the encased industrial beam. I already gave it the electronic control rod, but I'm missing 2 of the uranium cells. Exactly the number we're counting is what I set this to. If I wanted to count to 50, I remove all 48 extra of these cells, and now I need 50 counter machines to feed it these encased uranium cells. It's that simple. That's how you count to 50 in this game. I use this a lot for my winning and losing detecting because I can, let's say Battleship, I can plug all 100 machines up to 100 counters. I don't really know which one you're counting, but I know once you hit a certain number of hits, that would represent the number I'm after here, and I can trigger the win game sequence based on that answer. So really cool system. Let me go ahead and show you how it works. Oh, one other thing I could tell you. Notice this bar right here is all the way to the end. I've already went ahead and started building a fuel rod, and I did it up to like as close to 100% as I could. That way, when you provide it the last uranium cell, this thing almost spits out a rod almost immediately. If not, you'll be sitting here for like 2 minutes waiting for that rod to produce. So we kind of also did that. You can do it in vanilla, nothing really special. I just basically put it in standby mode right at the end, undid my parts, and I'm ready to go. The blueprint's already set up for you that way. Now these counter machines, there's not really anything special in here. I have a truck station with one of those cells we talked about waiting to go. So once you power this room on, it sends it over to our builder room. But I designed it in a way where you can take another room, plug the output into the input, and only the last room output would ever go into the builder. So I don't really know, if you just wanted to count to 1 and make it kind of an OR statement, you could do that. Either building I turn on, if I had that set at 49, would trigger our thing. But right now I created it as an AND statement where both of these counters have to be on in order to produce 2 items to get us to that 50 count. So let's go ahead and do it. It doesn't matter the order. I'll just do the second one first here. And what we'll see here is that cell got released and it's now in there. We should have a count of 49 in that manufacturer. Then we'll do the next one. This time you'll see it is actually going through that building, out here, into our builder, and here in about 2 seconds after that's entered, we should see our rod come out. There it is. should power on this light, and we've triggered our in-game sequence. You can also count losses. It doesn't have to be wins, of course. And I think in the last Mastermind game I did, I actually have a special room chamber that activates when you win the game, and a different room chamber that activates when you lose the game. If you haven't tried that save out, definitely do it. But yeah, so that is our logic mall. In the future, we may go ahead and create another logic mall if some more logic panels come up. I didn't go into the description of how each room works. I may do a separate video on each, but use that the comment section below if you have questions or anything at all about this logic. If you have another logic that you want me to work on, I can think about it. I doubt you can do every single thing in Satisfactory, but we've done a lot to create a lot of different mini games in the past. But I do usually kind of run in my head what is possible, what is not possible. I even tried to create checkers one time where you had to do flip switches and all that, and it didn't really work out that well, even though I got a couple pieces moved. Now that we have priority switches, I might go try to do checkers again or something. But every time they create something in the game, that gives us more opportunity to think outside the box and create more of these type of chambers. Hope you enjoy it. Let me know if you create any mini games. Let me know if you actually try to find uses for these in factories too. Who knows, you might come up with something I never even thought of. Don't worry about the blueprints themselves. Those are starters. They kind of explain and show you how to use this logic. But there's other ways of doing the exact same thing. I went ahead and used the things I'm used to using, which is power, belt links, mark level belts itself, power switches, priority switches. There's a lot of different things I use, but I put my 11 favorite into this mall. Until the next one, have a great day.